Hey everyone, my name is Bobby, and today this video will cover the basics of QuickBooks. Some of the things that we will be going over today include setting up your account, payroll and inventory management, journal entries, making invoices and bills, and generating financial reports. So, I hope you find this tutorial helpful, and now let's get started. QuickBooks is an accounting software that allows small to medium-sized businesses track their financial activities. Automation of financial tracking is a clear focus of this software as it allows business owners to run their companies efficiently. Some of QuickBooks' key features include creating journal entries, generating invoices, paying bills, payroll and inventory tracking, and financial report generation. Also, QuickBooks is available in online and desktop, and now we will review the advantages and disadvantages of each. Starting off with QuickBooks Desktop, this service is a much more traditional and less modernized version of QuickBooks. It's available offline and has a more limited mobile app available. Cloud storage is also available, but it has additional fees. It also has a much more dated user interface, and the user is responsible for managing their own security. Currently, it is being phased out to the more modern QuickBooks Online. This brings us to QuickBooks Online, which is a much more modernized version of the service. It is available from all user devices, including PC and mobile. It also has inclusive cloud storage, modernized user interface, and a built-in data security system. Now, let's cover some of the pricing options for QuickBooks. First off is Simple Start, and it's the most affordable option out there. And it's ideal for small businesses, and it allows up to one user with access for 2 accounting firms. It mainly features a lot of bookkeeping features, such as simple financial report generation, invoice creation, income and expense tracking, and 5 free automated clearinghouse transfers per month. Next up is Essentials, and it's still mainly suited for small businesses. It allows up to 3 users with access for 2 accounting firms. It also includes all the features in Simple Start, but it also has additional features such as more detailed accounts payable features, ability to log employee and contractor hours, and ability to set user permissions. Next up, we have Plus, which is the most popular option out there, and it's going to be used throughout today's tutorial. It's ideal for small to medium-sized businesses and allows up to 5 users with access for 2 accounting firms. It has all the features in Simple Start and Essentials. It also includes advanced financial reporting features, budgeting tools, inventory tracking features, automated profitability tracking, and income and expense tracking for specific departments. Finally, we have Advanced, and it's most suited for mid-sized businesses. It has up to 25 users with access for 3 accounting firms. It also includes all the features in Simple Start, Essentials, and Plus. It also has increased automation features, ability to sync data from Excel, cash flow and profitability forecasting features, ability to send batch invoices, ability to back up and restore data, and it's prioritized in customer support. Also, once you start creating your QuickBooks account, you'll notice that there is an option to purchase a payroll option. Today, we are going to be using the Payroll Premium feature as it allows for everything that we will be going throughout our example, and it is also the most popular option with QuickBooks. Now with all of this information, you can begin to create your own QuickBooks account. And in the next portion of this video, we will be applying these concepts practically as we will walk through an example that covers the daily operations of a winery. Now, let's get started. Once you have your QuickBooks account, you'll see a home screen like this. The next step in setting up your company is going to be going to Settings, Account and Settings, and then you'll see all of the relevant information for your company that you can enter in. And for the purposes of this example, I've already entered in all of the information we will be using today for our example company, so once you're finished, you can press Done and return to the home screen. Another important step to complete, especially if you have an existing company, is to import all of your existing data. Now to do this, first we're going to start off with importing a chart of accounts. To do this, first you're going to have to go back to the Settings panel. You're going to go to Import Data. Then now you want to select the record type and select chart of accounts and import this. And now you want to browse for your spreadsheet file on your computer. And this is what my spreadsheet file looks like. And you need to make sure everything is listed on the top row. And now you have to map everything and make sure all of those fields match what you have. And once you have everything selected, you can press Next. And now once you get to this screen, you just need to make sure you correct any errors that may show up in red, and once you are done with that, you can press import. Now we will cover how to set up your accounts receivable. First, we'll start off by setting up your preferred accounts receivable settings. So first, you want to go to Settings. Now you want to go to Account Settings, and then you can go to Sales. And then you could set your preferred invoice terms here, and by default it's net 30, and we're going to keep that for the purposes of our example. Now that we have that set up, we can start off with setting up our first customer. So go to Create, and then under Customers, you can see Add Customer. And under here, we already have our opening balance customer, and that was just created in order to make our opening balance for our accounts receivable. So we're just going to enter in our company name, and I'll cut it to adding all the other additional content, and we have everything added except for the opening balance amount, which can be edited through the opening balance invoice. Now that we have our first customer set up, you could go in and edit their invoice. First thing what we're going to do is set the terms to net 30, as that's what we're using throughout this example. And also I'm going to go ahead and adjust the invoice date to 2026, as that will be better suitable later on for this example. And finally, I will set the invoice number to balance forward, as this is a carry forward balance. Now you can repeat these steps for any remaining customers you have, as well as you could also import them using the import feature we discussed previously, as I have just done. And now you have successfully set up your accounts receivable. One important thing to note with our accounts receivable section, however, is that the intended current date for this example is December 15th, 2026, and you cannot adjust the system time within QuickBooks. However, the date within the reports feature can be adjusted, so once we get to the reports section, I will adjust the date accordingly in order to have accurate accounts receivable information. Once we're finished with that, we can now set up our accounts payable, and it's a very similar process to setting up accounts receivable. So just go to Add Vendor under Create, and now I'm just going to enter our company information, and I'll cut it to entering all of it in. We're also going to wait to set the opening balance in the bill for this transaction, as similar to the invoice, it also gives us more customization options. Now, in order to create the opening balance, we can create an opening balance bill. So go to New Transaction, and then go to Bill. And under here, you could list out all of your relevant info. And once you are finished with everything, you can press Save and return back to the home menu. You can also import all of your vendors automatically using the same import feature we used previously, as I have just done off camera. And once you have all your vendors imported, you are now complete setting up your accounts payable. Now we're going to shift our focus to setting up inventory. One important thing to note is that the transaction set we are working through today instructs to utilize LIFO as the inventory costing method. However, QuickBooks Online only supports FIFO, so that is what we will be using today. Now we can start by creating our first product. So go to Settings, then Products and Services, and then click on New Product and Service. And if you want to create an inventory item, go to Inventory Item. And now you can fill out all the required fields, and I will cut to that right now. Some important things to note about this screen are that you can map the inventory asset account right in the inventory info section. You can map the sales account associated with your inventory item in the sales box, and you could also map the expense account in the purchasing box. Now we have our first inventory item, and I will cut to creating the rest of the inventory items. You can also use the import feature so you can complete this process more efficiently. Now that we are finished with inventory, we can move on to creating our payroll system. So first things first, we need to go to Settings, then Payroll Settings. And you can see on here that we have like more advanced settings like auto payroll, but we won't really be focused on that today. So go to Accounting. And on here, you are given the option to map various functions within your payroll system to existing accounts within your system. Starting off, I will select my payroll checking account to handle our paycheck and payroll tax expenses, and I will cut to the rest of the accounts being selected. Once you are finished with selecting everything, you can press Done and return back to the home screen. Now that we have our payroll settings set up, we can start off with creating our first employee. So go to Create, then go to Payroll, and now you can press Get Started, and it'll ask you a few questions about your employees, so I'll just skip through this process. Now you can select which method you'd like to use to add your team. Today we'll use the manual selection, but you could also import it from a spreadsheet or import it using other applications. Now we can enter in some information about this employee. So go to add an employee, and on here you can enter in some basic information about them, and I'll be entering in all that information myself as we're not dealing with real people in this example, so go ahead and add this employee. Now we could enter in some more detailed information about this employee. Off camera, I have added all the information for this employee. Some things to pay attention to are that you can set the pay schedule in the employment details page. You can also set the base pay right here, and for this employee, we have set the rate to 17.5 an hour with 44 hours per week as the default working hours. You can also set overtime pay and qualified overtime tracking on the additional pay type section, and we will be using the 1.5 times base pay as that fits our example. There's also some additional settings you can enter in if you wish to do so. Now I will enter in all of the remaining employees off camera. Once you are finished creating all of your employees, you have finished creating your payroll section, and you could return to the home screen. Now that we have our payroll set up, we have finished the setup phase of this video, and in the next part of the video, we will focus on recording some transactions. Now that we have all of our company basics set up, we can start creating some transactions. Now, throughout our transaction set, there are many transactions, but I have selected a few key transactions to focus on for the purposes of this tutorial. The first transaction involves receiving a purchase order and then completing an invoice for this. So our first transaction will involve creating an invoice, and in QuickBooks, when you create an invoice, it automatically creates a journal entry for you once you receive the payment for it. So the invoice is the only thing you need to focus on for this transaction. So to create an invoice, you go to Create, and then select Invoice, and then on here you can see all the info that you can enter in. And I will cut to creating all this info now. And now we have all of the info for this invoice except for the last product, which I will enter in now. QuickBooks automatically keeps track of all your inventory products, which makes it very efficient to run a business and create invoices. It also keeps track of all of the prices for your items as well. Also, you can see here that QuickBooks keeps a list of all of your clients, which makes it very easy to import all of the information for them, as well as send the invoice to their appropriate address. Now we will press Review and Send, and we can send it to them through an email. And I sent it to myself just to showcase what it will look like. And as you can see here on this screen, this is the email I got from myself, and it shows the total price and it shows ways to pay it. Now you have created your first invoice in QuickBooks. Our next transaction involves creating a purchase order, and it works very similarly to creating an invoice. So to go to Create, and go to Purchase Order, and then on here you can add in all of your relevant info, which I will do now. Alright, now we have all of our info filled in, and I did create a new product for this transaction called White Grapes. So now we will press Save, and we have created our purchase order. Our next transaction focuses on the purchase of a truck and making a down payment on it. So to do this, we will create a check. So go to Create, and then go to Check, and then from here you can enter all of the relevant info for your check. Now I've entered in all of the top info for this check, and now I will walk through the process of creating a new asset account for the vehicle that we will purchase. So you just want to add a new category called Vehicle, and then you want to make sure to set your account type to whatever account that you're going to be using, and this is a fixed asset, and it's going to be, the detail type is going to be listed as a vehicle. Now I'm going to set the original cost to the total purchase price of this vehicle. Also, I'm going to create a category to keep track of depreciation, but I will calculate depreciation in the month-end procedures. So for now, we'll just set the depreciation to 0. Also notice that I created a notes payable category, and I added negative $22,000 for the amount. I did this because we were purchasing the truck for $22,000 on credit, and the down payment is $4,540. Now you have finished creating your first check in QuickBooks. Our next transaction involves authorizing a $50,000 cash dividend payable. So for this, we're going to need to create a journal entry. So go to Create, and then on here you want to go to Journal Entry. And now I will enter in all this top info. Now I have added the journal date and the journal number for this transaction. So we will be debiting the dividends account, and we will also be crediting the dividends payable account. And both of these amounts will be for $50,000. Once you have finished filling this info in, you have created your first journal entry. Our next transaction involves receiving a refund. So in QuickBooks, there is a refund receipt option, but this only applies to customers, and this specific transaction does not apply to a customer. So in order to work around this, we're going to go to Bank Deposit. Once you are here, you can fill out all of your relevant info. I have just finished filling out all of our required information. The account I chose was advertising expense, as choosing this will allow us to credit the account for $850 and then debit our cash in our general checking account for $850 as well. So once you have everything filled out, you can press Save and New and then return back to the home screen. Our next transaction focuses on receiving a payment from a customer's outstanding balance. So in order to do this, you're going to need to go to Create, and then you're going to go to Receive Payment. And now I will enter in all of the required information. Now I have filled in all of the required information for this amount received. As you can see here, this amount received is being applied against our opening balance. So once you have filled in everything in required, you can press Record and Close. Our next transaction involves creating a sales receipt. So to do this, we're going to go to Create, and then go to Sales Receipt, and now I will fill in all of the info. Now we have all of the information for the sales receipt, including all of the products, their quantities, rates, and total amounts on here, which works out to a subtotal of $28,903.20. So once you are done creating your sales receipt, you can press Record and Close. Our next transaction focuses on paying a bill. So to do this, you need to go to Create, and then Pay Bills, and then on here you can see all of the available bills you can pay. For this transaction, we will pay this bill, which was made for an inventory purchase off camera. Once you are in this screen, you must make sure that all of your above information is accurate. You can also see the amount you will be paying in this bill. On this screen, you can also enter in any discounts that you may have received for this bill. And since we have paid this bill within 10 days, we will receive a 2% discount. Now to enter this in, you just type in your discount account. So we will use the discounts given account here. And now we will type in our 2% and make sure it's set as a negative number so it takes off from the balance due. Now that we are almost finished with this bill, I have updated the bill number to match the one listed on the transaction. So once you have finished filling everything out, you can press Save, and also you can press Mark it as paid to record this transaction. Now you can press Save and Close and return to the Home menu. Our next transaction focuses on preparing payroll checks. So in order to do this, normally you'd go under Payroll under Create, but that requires you to input bank and tax information, so we will just use the check option instead. Once you are in this menu, you can follow all the previous steps we covered to creating a check. You want to make sure that you set your bank account to payroll checking account when you cover payroll, as this allows you to take money directly from this account. Once you are finished creating a check to your first employee, you can save and close that check. Off camera, I have saved the checks for the rest of the employees, but now we must transfer money from our checking account to our payroll checking account. So in order to do this, we're going to create a new vendor called Payroll Cash Transfer. Now for the payroll checking account, you can see that it has a negative balance, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this number. Now I'm just going to switch our bank account to the general checking account, since we'll use that to transfer the money into the payroll checking account. And now I'm just going to enter in the payroll checking account as the category, and adding the amount that we need to pay it by as the amount. Now we can press Save and Close. Now we are finished with creating all of our regular transactions, and now we will move on to our month-end and year-end procedures. Starting off with our month-end procedures, we will create a compound journal entry to record all of our adjustment entries. So to do this, go to Create, and then go to Journal Entry, and now you can get started creating your adjustment entries. Our first adjustment entry consists of a $54.25 interest payment on the Potter Valley Ford note, and this is for 15 days of interest from December 17th through the 31st. The second adjustment entry records the December depreciation expense, and I calculated this by taking the initial $105,341.50 depreciation expense and adding on the depreciation expense for the truck. Our final adjustment entry consists of a $90 fee, which includes $30 in bank charges and $60 in printing fees. It also consists of a return check from a lot of wine distributors, and it also credits the total December bank statement adjustments to the general checking account. Now that we are finished with all of our adjustment entries, I will set the journal number to a more appropriate title, and once we are finished with everything, I'll press Save and New. Moving on to our year-end procedures, I've created the adjustment entry for our bad debt expense off camera. On this screen, I've created an adjustment entry for the federal income tax expense using a tax rate of 21%. Now we are finished creating all of our adjustment entries. Now we will move on to the final part of this tutorial, which will cover the financial reporting features within QuickBooks. So in order to access these features, you need to go to Reports, and then you can click on Standard Reports, and under here you can see all the reports that QuickBooks can generate for you. The first report that we'll generate is the balance sheet. In here you can also adjust the reporting period, and I will adjust ours to be this fiscal year, as our transactions cover dates within December 2026. Also, if your company spans multiple financial periods, you can use this tool to select which period to compare it to see the differences in your data. Once you are done with your balance sheet, you can press this export tool and you can export it to any of these, and we will export ours to a PDF. And as you can see here, QuickBooks has prepared our balance sheet in a PDF format, and once you are finished in this menu, you can press Save as PDF. And also, while there are many different financial reporting features within QuickBooks, here are some of the most commonplace ones, such as this one, which is the profit and loss statement, this one, which is the statement of cash flows, this, which is the aged receivables report, and finally this, which is the aged payables report. So, with all that covered, that's going to be it for today's tutorial. I hope you've learned a lot about QuickBooks throughout this tutorial, and thanks for watching.